Mark and I have known each other for a little bit, but Mark has had quite the distinguished career. He's been in the military. He served in Iraq. He was an officer in the Army. He's going to tell you a little bit about himself, so I'm not going to preview it all. We taught at West Point. He's done all sorts of things. And what I really loved about Mark's presentation to the last group was just this. It's what we're talking about. It's about leadership. It's about, you're going to hear the rest of the day a lot of things about the mechanics of how we go through being a project manager. But if you heard me this morning, this is about leading people, leading teams, getting after it, doing good things. And Mark is much more entertaining and interesting than I am. So I'm just going to turn it over to Mark and let him go, and I hope you enjoy it.
No pressure. No pressure. Thanks. Hey, great to be here. I love Thrasher. I've done some work with you. We're going to talk about you as a project manager being the hub of the wheel. The hub of the wheel. And make no mistake, you're playing for the varsity. I've done work with other companies. I know other companies. I know a lot of people in engineering. I have engineering degrees. You are playing for the varsity. And that is a privilege, and it's a burden. It's a responsibility to live up to as well. It's more than just something to brag about. And we'll talk about these things. I want to talk about myself real quick because I like to do that once in a while. I was born and raised down in Summersville, West Virginia, wide spot in the road down in Nicholas County. I graduated high school from there. I went to the military academy up at West Point, New York. Great experience. I think it's the greatest leadership school in the world. I have some other companies, most that also graduated there. I spent 22 years in active duty and retired as lieutenant colonel. And in the course of that time, I got to do a lot of different things. And I got to hit all the key blocks, but these are the jobs that I really love because you're where the rubber meets the road. Just like the project manager, is what you do or don't do every day makes a difference. Now the reality is, Chad, he could sleep in someday and miss a whole day of work. And Thrasher's not going to notice. But as a project manager, you take a day off, things are going to grind to a halt. Because what you do matters every single day. I don't need to belittle the CEO position, but what I'm saying is what you do every single day makes an impact. I got to go back and teach at West Point, was I think an oversight if somebody slipped up, but I got in there and got to do it, a great assignment. And then my last assignment was I was over in Norway working for NATO, and that's where my project managing experience really came from. I led 2-year-long efforts to create operational level training exercises. So an operational training, operational level exercise in the military, you're usually talking about a 3 or 4-star general commanding the forces. It also involves air, land, maritime forces. We also incorporated political aspects into those exercises. And we did all the things that you do. There's 5 phases of project management we'll touch on in just a second. So I have some very valuable experience from that I think you will find helpful as I share with you. I got to work in Norway and spent 3 years there. Spent 2 tours in Iraq in the Baghdad area. Not fun, not enjoyable at all. I learned some things, not always the things I thought I should learn or wanted to learn. And I've been in business since 2013, and some of the clients I've worked with, you see there. And I'm delighted to be working with Thrasher now. So there's a reason why I'm doing all this, and it's not just bragging, but I will come back to that in a few minutes. I also have 4 kids. I know people talk about being parents. I have an 11-year span from our oldest to our youngest, so I can relate to the didn't quite make driving in diapers at the same time, but close to that. 2 daughters and 2 sons. My oldest graduates Marshall University this spring in about a month and a half. I'm really excited. And she is not the most brilliant kid in the world, but she knows how to work hard. So she's pretty smart and she knows how to work hard, and that just makes her a lethal combination. I'm enormously proud of her. And we'll see what the boys do. Well, here we're talking about you. This is you. You're the hub of the wheel. The way Thrasher is built and the way Chad is orienting everything is the organization is built to support you. Because the realization is your success is Thrasher's success. Because of what you do, the projects that you ramrod, you are right here. Everything else, environmental services, all the the engineering, the architecture, the business development, all those are spokes coming off you as the hub to support you. I heard Devana talking about earlier about how business development works with you and is there as a resource for you. This is the way the company, Chad, works for you in a lot of ways. Now, you can also fire you, but that's a little different. But make no mistake, if you need something, and there may be a time in a project when you say, you know, I can't get it done. I need to bring in the big gun. I need the CEO. Chad's going to be there for you. He's going to help you get done what needs to get done. And there are times when you do that. It was the same thing in the Army. There were times when I had to call a general officer to get things done because they weren't listening to Lieutenant Colonel McMillion anymore. And I'd beat up people all the way up, and you just can't beat up people that outrank you in the military. And I had to call in a general to make that phone call to make things happen. There's a similar dynamic at work here. Now this is the way it is, but sometimes it kind of feels like this. Sometimes it feels like it's everything revolves around you. You're the one spinning. It can be a dizzying experience without mistake. So the job title project manager, and that's been in existence a long time, and I think it's very misleading because what you do, a large part of what you're doing is leadership as well. There's absolutely management aspects to it, and there's leadership aspects. And I want to break those out a little bit. And the reality is you manage material and processes. In other words, you manage things. And we're going to talk about what management is. But the reality is you lead people. And people cannot be treated as objects. When you treat people as objects, what happens? What happens?
Turn them off.
You turn them off. Absolutely. Great answer. Oh, not lunch. I threw a pin one time and kind of stuck a guy with it, so I tried to really solve it now. But when you treat people like objects, you're crushing their morale. You're not building a esprit de corps. You're not building a team. You're making people angry and disgruntled. And they're going to vote with their feet sooner or later. They will vote with their feet. And last time I checked, people were lined up to work at Thrasher. And that is a very telling thing. And the reality is, and the connection between these two things, people are what make all those processes happen. Whether it's drafting the designs, whether it's doing all the great things you do, it's people that are making those things happen, and people are not objects. That's what comes back to leadership. Now, apologize, I have red titles on a magenta background, my bad. But managers and leaders, we're going to talk about aspects of each really quickly. But the reality, managers kind of figure out how to get things done, how to get there from here. And that allocation of resources. So the resource may be budget, it may be man hours or manpower, the number of people you put against it. And those are really kind of emotionalists, right? Those are not sentimental things necessarily. Those are cut and dried, very engineering type, black and white thing. X, Y, +2, -4, whatever. And just, you'll see again, we talk about the 5 pieces of project management here. You can plan, organize, and coordinate. And there's times no surprise. What you need, I'm not the first person to say this, but what you need to understand is that managers focus on doing things right. Getting the processes to function properly. Because when the process functions properly, you have a good outcome, right? This is the appropriate response. Okay. All right. But leaders are a little bit different. Leaders are a little bit different. And the first and foremost thing that leaders do is they've got to provide some motivation. You need to explain to people why you're doing what you're doing, and you need to explain to them why what you're doing matters. This is especially important when you're dealing with younger employees. Now, I'm 50, so I'm a little bit older guy, right? And I kind of get that way, crotchety old guy sometimes. And, oh, you just do what you're supposed to do. That's all you need to do. Right? That's not the way the world works anymore. My generation and the generation before me has created a world where young people have had some more luxuries than maybe we did growing up, and they have choices. And they're not in that rush to just have a job. They want a job that matters. They want a job that has, and you think, and the reality is, when you think about it, you spend an enormous amount of time at work. at least 1/3 of your life. Shouldn't that be invested in something more than just earning a paycheck? I'm not against a good paycheck. I'm not against that. But it means you want to know when you're old with the blanket on your lap and the rocking chair, you want to look back and think, what I did mattered. What I did made a difference in other people's lives. Not simply provide for my family, although that's important. And Thrasher, to its credit as a company, is kind of leaning forward in a foxhole in this. So this is the mission statement from the website. You talk about to improve the communities. To improve the community where we live. Right? You're not carpetbaggers. And you know, as we went around the room, we had people from Kentucky, from North Carolina, from Pennsylvania, from West Virginia, a couple of different places. You know, we live in those communities where we work and make things happen. And the things that you do make all the difference between America being America or America being in Iraq. Now, I know that sounds kind of crazy, right? The #1 project in the city of Baghdad in 2005, when I spent a year there, was a gigantic sewage treatment plant. And Iraqis were not that excited about it, to be honest with you. They weren't that excited about it because their plumbing was pretty much the same for the last 1,000 years. Little hole in the floor, little ditch, runs to a big ditch, runs to the river. They lived, ate, slept in the constant smell of human excrement. That's all they knew. They didn't know any difference. And there's public health problems that are associated with that, obviously. You know, in the rainy season, it gets really nasty because stuff doesn't stay in the ditch then. But we came in, and there are people who asserted we were being high-handed by telling them what they needed instead of just doing what they asked us to do. The problem is what they asked us to do was a lot of small, superficial stuff that was enabled them to provide fleeting local jobs for family and friends. And it wasn't, and we were there to build a nation, is what we, in spite of what the president said sometimes that we weren't in the nation building, we were in the nation building. When you're building roads, when you're building sewage treatment plants, when you're building city halls, you're building nations, and that's what we did. But that's a big part of purpose. The other thing leaders have to do is build the team. You got to build that team. You cannot simply assume that a bunch of individuals are going to get everything done. We are at our best when we rely on others around us, and we know that they're relying on us. They've done an enormous amount of research. Why do soldiers fight in war? Right? Oh, God, mom, apple pie, patriotism, love of... Yeah, they do. All those things do matter. But the #1 reason soldiers go fight is because their buddies are relying on them to get the job done. And they're relying on their buddies. And I think that's immensely powerful. And everyone wants to feel needed. And when you're part of a team, when you're integrated in that team, you are needed. And that team is relying on you just as you are relying on that team. And that's that powerful motivation. And I think that dovetails very quickly with purpose and team together. And I will tell you, team, 1 + 1 = 3. There's value in that relationship. Just like while we did the introductory exercise and made everybody move around and change seats. Because those bonds are in the Army we call it a force multiplier. 1 + 1 = 3. Leaders take care of people, right? So there's an old Army saying, soldiers won't care what you know until they know that you care. They won't care what you think until they think that you care. You can take that either way. And that's part of building those social bonds that makes you a powerful team, a powerful unit, a powerful organization. You got to harness emotion. You got to understand emotional intelligence. So, you know, one of the things, this is a book I read last year, it just came out, EQ Applied. EQ, they use that shorthand for emotional intelligence. This is a great introductory book if you're so interested. But you need to understand your emotions, because your emotions impact how you interact with other people. And we could spend a whole day talking about EQ if we wanted to, and we're not going to. Then you need to understand other people's emotions. And you understand how your behavior impacts other people's emotions, how their behaviors and emotions impact you, your hot buttons, and managing those. There's a great stuff about that. I've got a whole block if you're ever interested. And the last thing leaders do is focus on doing things right, or doing the right thing, sorry. So the idea that managers focus on doing things right, making those processes work. So Stephen Covey in The 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of Covey, by the way. And we'll talk about a couple of his habits very specifically. He tells a story about a group of managers hiking a road through the jungle, right? And they got their machetes and knocking down the elephant grass and they yelling up vines and beating it down. And some guy climbs a tree and looks and says, "Hey, we're going the wrong direction." That's the leader. The manager's down on the jungle floor saying, "Yeah, but we're making great progress." And I love that. I think it's a very simple illustration of the difference between leaders and managers. And that's why you need to build. And every supervisory position is a mix of these. You don't have pure leaders or pure managers. Or if you do, you have a real weakness in your organization. It's a matter of some do more of one more than the other. Project managers, in my experience, it was very close to half and half. You had to set clear priorities. That's the leadership piece. But you really had to build that team, but you had to make sure people were doing things correctly as well. Actually, I would say project manager, in my experience, was a little more, probably 60-40 on leadership, maybe a little bit higher. But those are some of the key differences. We could talk forever about those, and we're not going to. But when you get, so anybody here PMP certified? Yeah, PIMP. I never thought that would be like a good thing, you know? Yeah, PIMP! But those are the 5 areas that you're tested. If you take that PMP certification, which is a very highly sought after credential, right? If you look on LinkedIn, you'll see a lot of project management people looking for project managers, a lot of advertising to help you become a project manager. And does Thrasher offer some assistance if somebody wants to become PMP qualified?
Yes.
They do. And we'll come back to why that might matter in just a minute or so. And we're not going to talk about any of these in detail, but you take a question. How many questions in that test? Like 200 questions in that PMP test. It's really big, and the biggest part is on execution. But you have all about from initiation to closing. But what we're going to really get a little more into the details about is something that cuts across all 5 of those areas, and that's communication, because that's what really sets off, that makes everything work. And that's the first part of being a leader. Is if you cannot communicate an idea to someone else, it's really hard to lead them. Because then they kind of have to guess where they're going. And that's not leadership. So we're going to do an exercise. And we need to move quickly because we have limited time. I need you to partner up. I need one person to face the front of the room and one person to face the back. I want you to sit back to back. You need a notepad. The person facing the back is an artist. The person facing the front, you're going to describe figures on the screen. Wherever you were sitting. Was this a challenge?
Yes.
Why was it a challenge?
Because you can't talk back.
So what does that mean? You can't talk back. Who said that?
Me.
Why? So what?
Because if I don't understand his instruction or if I need more guidance, I can't let him know.
Okay, so what kind of conversation were you having?
A one-sided conversation.
One-sided conversation, exactly. Exactly. What else? What else makes it hard? What else makes it hard besides one-way conversation? That's definitely a big part of it.
When one moved on to the next part, I had to move on to the next part, whether I was done with that part or not.
Ah, so there was no common reference. There's no common framing. Good,
I
good.
gave him plenty of time. He should have had it.
The one given directions could not check on how it was going.
There's a lack of feedback, right? You couldn't see what he was drawing. Absolutely. Good answer. Yeah. So, and I framed those rules very specifically to make it hard, right? But how many times, as a supervisor, as a leader, or as a follower, have you been told, do this? Don't ask questions. Get it done. I don't have time to explain it to you. I've done that. I confess. And I haven't done that in a long, long time. But when I was a young lieutenant, I did that sometimes. What do you mean you don't understand? Just get it done, Sergeant. I don't have time to explain it. I don't have time to hold your hand. I don't have time to wipe your nose. You ever hear those expressions? Get the diapers off. It's big boy time. Let's go. Put your big boy pants on. But the reality is, communication works best when it's two-way. When it's two-way. Because then you get to find clarity. You see where the other person is. You establish that common frame of reference through the give and take in conversation. You can map the pace that the other person is receiving the information. You can tell, are they keeping up or are they falling behind? You can tell whether they're doing what you ask them to do or they're not when you have that give and take. And that's incredibly important. And that brings me to Covey's fifth habit. 7 habits, right? His fifth habit, seek first to understand and then to be understood. And that talks about, when I was young, I was fiery. I mean, I'm so much calmer, more laid back now than I used to be. And when something was going on and I didn't think it was going right, man, I was in there. I'm in there grabbing, holding, shaking things. Look, why is this button? Hey, what did it do? You know, and I wasn't asking questions. I was jumping in there. And I didn't try to understand what was going on. And so many times, it finally sank in, right? So many times I figured out, somebody said, hey, sir, wait a second, Lieutenant, hold on. This is why this, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Once I understood. But when you jump in there and start grabbing and rattling and chewing, you're alienating people. And you're taking them off. Because there's a reason. And you're filled with a company of people who want to do well. Thrasher is not filled with people that are like, ain't good enough. That's almost right. We'll let that ride. You're filled with a people of A players that want to get things right. So when things are not going right, there's probably a reason. And then when you ask first, instead of jumping in and shaking, right? Because we're all can-do type of people, right? We all want to get things done. We all want to achieve excellence. But when you're part of a team, you got to ask the question. And when you lead with a question, it's amazing how much you learn when you listen. It's amazing how much you can learn. And when you listen, you got to listen with your eyes. That sounds kind of funny, right? Listen to your eyes. What do I mean? What do I mean, listen with your eyes? That sounds stupid. Who thinks that sounds stupid? No pen for you. No pen for you.
Body language.
Body language. Exactly. Body language. We're going to talk a little more about body language in just a second. But the way people hold themselves makes all the difference in the world. Now, Quinn and I were talking before we started today. And he was telling me, he started describing to me how he had just spent all yesterday evening repotting his geraniums. And you gotta get the root ball supported, and you gotta make sure you have the right mix of fertilizer and the moisture content of the soil. And we started talking like this, and he's getting deeper and deeper into the finer details of repotting geraniums. And you see me start going this. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And then he said, but then I went and fed my Venus flytraps. And I was like, whoa, Venus flytraps, meat-eating plants, that's cool stuff. Tell me about that, Quinn. And now I'm interested. My body language is telling them. My body language is telling them whether I'm engaged or not engaged. And you just lost me. No, I just made that up. Quinn didn't really talk about it. I just made that up because he was there. But you got to use your eyes as well. And you know, the only thing I've ever learned when I was actually talking was that I was boring someone. And when you're in the business of what I do, of talking to groups and interviewing, you better learn to read some body language. Because you're going to find out. And you'll see the audience, you start seeing them shifting, and you'll see the phones come out, right? But they're all cracked because they're under the table, and you don't know what they're doing. Right? And you know, immediately what I found in the middle of is you just drop a sex comment in there. And then all of a sudden people are like, wait, hey, what's he talking about? And you just, if you were like, whatever you're talking about to sex, right there, you just jerked everybody back in. That's just they got 3 at 11. But you got to be present. Now those phones, these things are powerful. These things are, I can do 90% of my business operation. I can build presentations on my phone if I wanted to. I don't want to, it's a pain in the butt. But I've had to modify them before at the last second. But the reality is these things are huge distractions. These are huge distractions, and they're distractions for everybody, but especially leaders. So when I was doing project management, and I was doing this exercise, and we come to a critical point, a big decision point, and we were moving ships and planes and soldiers across international borders. We had people involved from like 7 different countries in NATO, and we're talking about going to Estonia and warding off the fictional attack from the north, which is actually Finland, but we all knew we were really talking about Russia. But we were at that decision point. I had to get a decision from the 1-star general. All right, it was way above my pay grade. So I made an appointment, got on his calendar, right? Send the read-ahead packet so he could send it to him a week ahead, so he had plenty of time. He could review it on his timeline, not mine. Checked with his admin 2 days out, and said, hey, I got my appointment on Wednesday with General so-and-so. He got the packet right, giving him that little friendly prompt to be prepared. And so I go to the appointment, knock on the door, enter, sir, Lieutenant Colonel McMillion reports. I have a seat, Mark. I'll be with you in a second. And he's typing an email. And he types with me. He said, go ahead and start, Mark. I'm listening. And he's typing an email. Go ahead and start. I didn't do anything. And he's just typing. No, go ahead, Mark. Listen, I'm almost done here. Good. I said, sir, it's okay. I'll wait a minute. I'm sure that email's important, and what I have talked about is important too. And I really need you fully engaged. I shouldn't have said that part. So he slams his laptop down. Bam! So, all right, Mark, what is it? So I kind of tweaked him, but I had his attention. And he was new to his job. So he hadn't really been through a full exercise before. And later, not that 1-star generals will ever admit they were wrong or they appreciate what a lieutenant colonel did for them. But I could tell later on he did. Because he knew later he appreciated the ramifications of the decision he had made. And that I had kind of forced him to make a fully informed decision instead of a halfway, yeah, go ahead, Mark. And believe it or not, 1-star general, he was hunting and pecking. He didn't have time. But you got to be present. One of the greatest gifts you can give someone is your attention. And it's immensely powerful. Who thinks they're a great multitasker? No pen for you. There's no such thing as multitasking. It's task switching. You're doing this, you're doing this, you're doing. Now some people can go back and forth really quickly, but it degrades the cognitive effectiveness of what you're doing. One of the things I really try to beat into my kids' head is she who focuses wins. Because that ability to focus and be in the moment is immensely powerful and a real key to success. Communication. So a guy wrote a long time ago. Anybody know who wrote the sun source of all things communication? 2,500 years ago.
Just start guessing Greek people. Aristotle.
Hey, bingo! Winter, chicken dinner right here, right? You had a chicken dinner. Yeah, Aristotle wrote On Rhetoric. It's called On Rhetoric. 2,500 years ago, this guy just kind of nailed it. And honestly, what people have added to it in the last 2,500 years, just a little bit around the edges. He got the bulk of it. And it's really good. And it starts with your ethos, right? Now, we use the word ethos a little differently today. But when Aristotle used ethos, he was talking about your personal credibility. So now, you remember I told you we were going to come back to my introduction slide when I was up there bragging about myself? Where I've been, what I've done? You remember that? So it wasn't just to create a personal bond with you so you know I'm a human being. Yeah, that too. But part of it was I wanted you to understand that I have relevant experience to what we're talking about. I have led troops across 3 continents. I've led troops in combat. I have led projects, year-long projects, high stakes that crossed the international border. I did that to help you understand maybe this guy's worth listening to. And if I showed up and ripped up jeans and a Black Sabbath t-shirt, I put myself in a hole. Everyone's mother's told them, don't judge a book by its cover, right? My mother told me that. We all do. It's a very, very human thing. So Susan always likes me to tell my bathroom story, right?
Oh my God.
And I know, right? She makes me do this. So I was on business down in Charleston. I was coming back, stopped at Flatwoods at the Go Mart, get gas, and I'm using the bathroom in the restaurant. And ladies, if you don't know the etiquette of the men's room is you look straight ahead. You do your bit. You're not like, hey, what's going on? Hey. Nah, like this. So I heard somebody come in behind me, and it was a man and a little boy, and it was his father. And the little boy was 3 or 4, kind of out of diapers, but still learning the process, so to speak. And he took him into the stall, and he was talking them through using a public restroom. Oh, don't touch this. No, don't let that. And it was, and the father's voice was so warm, so caring. And I'm thinking, this is a great dad. This is great. I'm not looking though. I'm not looking. So I finish. I go out and check out the Coke or whatever, and I see them come out of the restroom. Little boy and the dad. He's got like a full sleeve tattoo, wife beater T-shirt, right? The white thin strap white T-shirt, greasy hair sticking out of under a nasty cap, dirty clothes. Just did not look like a reputable person. He looked like a bum. And now, again, I told you I'm an old guy. I have some pretty strong opinions about the way people should look. And it was like a kick in the stomach. To me, it was a slap in the face. Hey, Mark, you judge a book by its cover. But I got to look at the contents of that book before I saw the cover. And I realized there's a lot more to that guy than just his appearance. He was a great dad. He loved that. He may have some other shortcomings or something I didn't agree with, but there was no questioning in my mind that he loved his kid. And he cared about raising that boy. And that was a beautiful thing. And it was just that slap in the face of don't judge a book by its cover. At the same time, everybody does. And your personal appearance matters. Your haircut, the clothes you choose to wear, whether you choose to shower every day. Some people don't. Some people believe it's a weekly thing, right? My dad used to joke, Saturday night, time for a bath. Let's go, Mark. All those things. Now, that doesn't mean you should just mindlessly dress like everyone else. There's certainly room for some individual expression in the way you dress and present yourself to others. But there's a lot of goodness in presenting a professional appearance. Don't underestimate that. Say a thesis or your pathos, the emotional content of your argument. And I know many of you are engineers or very engineering-related people. I have 2 degrees in engineering. Engineers think black and white. It's right, it's wrong. You build a bridge, it's not kind of right. It's got to be right, or the truck drives a car, kaboom. It's got to be right. But the reality is, because we're all people and you lead teams of people, you need to tune into that emotional content of the message. And it does matter. And some people respond more to emotion than logic. Other people are much more logically based. Much more. They're about the facts. Give me the data. Certain situations are more data-driven than others. Some situations are not. We talk about managers are more data-driven. It's an operation without emotions. Leaders cannot be purely data-driven. The data will lead you, but it's not necessarily the final answer all the time. And these 2 pieces are always inherent in any message you're sending to any audience. And what's the first thing you learn in writing class? The very first thing you do when you start to write. What's the first thing you're supposed to do? It's not an outline. It's not a rough draft.
Brainstorm?
Before that, before you can do that, you need to do something else.
How to hold your pencil correctly.
No?
Have a purpose?
You need to know your audience. Did I take a different writing class than everybody else? That's the first thing that beat in my head. You got to know who you're writing for. Who's the audience? Are you writing teen fiction? Are you writing a professional paper for a technical paper for a professional society? Are you writing for the newspaper or a press release? Who is the audience? Who is going to read what you produce? That's before you even brainstorm. But it is after you learn to hold a pencil. So. But these things are a mix. So when I go down and talk to the Association of Social Workers down in Charleston, I tend to be a little more emotionally laden in my message and the way I try to communicate my message to them and talk about the the problems with miscommunication. I don't think I need to do that with you because this is a very different audience. I want to go into some details of face-to-face communications. How are we on time? How much time I have?
10 minutes.
10 minutes? Okay. So words matter, okay? I'm not going to show you the link. It's a Friends clip where Joey finds out what a thesaurus is. If you ever saw that episode of Friends, it's humorous, but it's not. But words matter. And now, I'll tell you, I grew up with a dad who loved to use big words. He got a kick out of it. You know? And there's a time and a place when you say, hey, let's perambulate for our midday break to ingest sustenance, right? Other times, maybe you just need to say, hey, let's walk to lunch. But you're saying the same thing. But the words you choose matter. I advocate simple, direct speech all the time. Whether I'm talking to a room of PhDs, I try to use very direct language because I find it is universally understood. At the same time, when I do address a room of PhDs, I did some work with the American Association for the Advancement of Science, which they're all 10-pound brains. You know, I did let my vocabulary flex a little bit because they like things like that. The tone of voice. Devana, come here. Devana, come here! 3 words. Name, verb, and whatever here is. Right? Very different meaning. You know, the first time Devana come here, she's like, oh, okay. You know, when you bark it out there, use what I call my mean voice to my kid. Don't make me use my mean voice. You get that clinch. You're like, oh, something's wrong. I don't know what's going on. Am I in trouble? Did I screw something up? You don't know. But the tone of voice is incredibly important when you're communicating with people. And the last thing is your body language. And we talked about Quinn and his geraniums, God love them, repotting those things. But he also has these fly traps, so don't write them off completely. But your body language. So this cartoon, tell me why this cartoon is funny. Why is that cartoon funny? Letting someone go is never easy, Peters. That's the caption one.
He's making it look easy. His feet's kicked up.
So why is it funny?
Saying 2 different things.
Yeah.
One words versus what his body expression is.
Okay, so is that disalignment? Disalignment, is that a word?
I got it in.
Alignment between the body language and the words, right? We don't hear the tone of voice because it's in writing. But you know, he's all kicked back and relaxed. It's not stressing him out to fire this guy to destroy his livelihood and put those doubts of how he's going to feed his family. He's not sweating it. It's really hard. That's the funny, and that's kind of the essence of a lot of humor, is that conflict of commonly understood things. But you are at your very best as a leader when you get your words, tone, and body language aligned and followed with actions. That is when you truly achieve alignment of communication. That is when you're going to be at your most effective as a communicator. You know, so I've had bosses say, you know, hey, you know, family's really important. You know, we deploy, so we're going to put long hours, but, you know, family's really important, so, you know, when you can take off a little bit early, that's okay, do that. Oh, except you, Mark. I need you staying. Oh, I'm sorry, your kid's got a Little League game tonight? I need you to get this done. Because I got to talk to the general at 1600 tomorrow, and I want to make sure at 9 o'clock it's ready when I come in. You see the lack of alignment between the words and the actions. What's that sowing the seeds of? What do you call someone who says one thing and does another?
A hypocrite.
It's a hypocrite. It's hypocrisy. You want to talk about wrecking morale. Hypocrisy does it. So I want to talk about a couple of tactics briefly before we wrap things up. And some of you will look at this and say, well, that's a blinding flash of the obvious. And you know, it really is. In the Army, we have something called a drive-by tasking. And the boss will come out and say, hey, Greg, I need you to do this, this, and this, okay? Hey, don't ask questions. I need to go, right? We talked about there's a very quick one-way burst assignment of giving a task. And so when I was a lieutenant, I had a battalion commander do that. Guy's like 3 pay grades up from me. He's the top guy in my unit. And he comes by and says, Mark, hey, I need you to build slides for the Ready First Combat Team, Fire Support University. And I'm going to be out of the office all day. I'll be back at 17:30. Have them ready. Sir, no, Mark, I don't have time. I've got to go. And he left. And this was on Harvard Graphics 3.0, by the way. Anybody remember that? Before PowerPoint? Wow, you guys are... I'm the dinosaur. But the first thing you do is give the task. Tell them what you want them to do, and then you ask them to tell you what they think you want them to do. But it's really important to have them use their own words. If they simply parrot, a parrot can mimic human speech, right? That doesn't mean they have understanding. If they just say the same word, Polly wants a cracker, Polly wants a cracker. Does Polly really want a cracker, or is Polly just saying that? We don't know, because parrots are parrots. We don't want parrots. We want people to mimic, to give us the message in their own words, to demonstrate understanding, to make sure we're on that common sheet, that common framework of understanding. That's how you do that. Now, sometimes it takes a while. You know, when I say, Susan, let's look at our fourth quarter learning requirements and how we're going to approach those. But before you get it done, come back to me 9 o'clock tomorrow and just map out how you want to approach that, okay? So now, see, I'm giving her a chance to go digest it and figure out what she needs, what resources, maybe rough out a plan, and we're going to come back and I'll maybe give some additional guidance. Now, so when that colonel gave me that job, right, for those slides, I'm standing there, 17:30, beside his desk. Sir, here they are. I thought I really did a good job. I busted my butt for 8 hours building stupid slides on Harvard Graphics. And I was proud. You know, I thought I really did good work. He looks at the first slide. He's like, mm-hmm. I'm like, yeah, nailed it. That was only the title slide. He looks at the second slide, right? Like, that didn't sound good. He reaches for his red pen. By the time he was done, it looked like he gutted a rabbit or something on the desk. You know, he bled all over my slides, and it was completely wrapped. And that was his problem. But you know, that was a great boss, because he didn't get mad. And he realized he hadn't given me good guidance. And really what he was doing, he didn't know the words for, it was called design by prototype. Anybody familiar with that? It's the idea that you don't know what you want. Now, Stephen Covey says, begin with the end in mind. That's one of his 7 habits. And I love that we're always possible. But when I was a leader, I didn't always know what the end looked like. I knew we were going this way, but I wasn't sure what this product looked like. But what I would do, and we'll talk about it again in a second, we talk about expectations, is I would tell people, I'm not sure where we're going with this, but I need you to start developing something for it. But what I was doing was I was setting his expectations, and he knew he didn't have to get it picture perfect the first try. He knew I wasn't looking for the final product right off, that I was looking for a draft, a prototype, if you will. Design by prototype is something industrial engineers do when they start building devices for people and they're not sure. So they mock up a prototype and they throw it out there and let users play with it. And then they get feedback and they fix it and they throw it out again. And it makes design an iterative process. It's a very powerful technique. Time intensive and sometimes costly. And I apologize for the red. But back grease to create alignment of effort. Because, you know, now I've been on, like when I was on the receiving, what I learned after that experience with that colonel was when I got a drive-by tasking. And the boss is so busy, right? They can't explain anymore. I would say, hey boss, you have time for me to do this twice? Not well received. Not well received, right? And sometimes you get, well, you know, hey, you're a big boy, figure it out. And that's okay, because there's some things you should be able to figure out as well. But but I would often press the box, and several times when I did that to a boss, the boss like, you're right, Mark. And he would take 5 more minutes to give better guidance of what he needed. But sometimes the boss doesn't know what you want, and you've got to do that by prototype. Quick story. So this is a Humvee. This was back in the days in the early 90s. This is before the Army figured out you put a vehicle on a battlefield, somebody might shoot at it. Who knew, right? Who knew? So that was in Desert Storm. We had to up-armor Humvees. They had hillbilly armor and all that. But so I had a Humvee as a platoon leader, and these are vinyl doors, right? They don't look like much, but they keep the rain out, and they do hold in a little bit of heat. And my Humvee door had gotten ripped up on a field training exercise, and it was an order, but it hadn't come in yet. And I knew we were getting ready to go to the field down Hohenfels, Germany in October, and it snows down there, and it gets really cold. And I was not looking forward to that. You're allowed to operate the vehicle without doors. And as a platoon leader, I had a driver. So Private Warner, a good old boy from Missouri, was assigned to me. Platoon sergeant picks that private. He says, hey, look, son, you got one job. You make that vehicle in top operating condition, you make the lieutenant happy, right? Because when he's happy, he's out of my business. I get to do what I want. So Warner knew that. So we're walking through the motor pool on Friday afternoon. We're about 2 weeks or a week out from the training exercise. And I get down to my Humvee and that door's ripped up and it's not come in. And I say, you know, golly gee, Dad Shannon, shucky darns, or words like that. And clearly communicated that my frustration out loud. And of course my troops were there and they hear that. So I come in Monday morning, I got a Humvee door. And of course I'm very loud, like, oh wow, that's awesome, great, good job, Warner, atta boy. And 2 rows over, I hear one of the majors in the battalion screaming, "Where's my darn Humvee door?" Or words to that effect. And I'm like, "Go, guy, good job." And I quickly found out that major wanted to practice some one-way conversation with me, which he did. It wasn't completely one-way, because I said, "Yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir," after I wiped the spit off my face, because it was in my good high school football cap. So anyway, I had to go tell my private that, hey, you know, look, larceny's not part of the job description. No problem. I understand why this happened. The NCO took him and educated him a little more in depth. But what I had done is I figured out the megaphone effect. And I found out that when you're a leader, your casual remarks are monitored and examined very closely. People really care what you think. They want to make you happy. They want to know. And if you're not careful, you're going to send the wrong message to people. And this can be done through criticism. Maybe you didn't mean it as like this earth-moving criticism. Maybe you just meant it as a casual observation. But as a leader, you don't have the luxury of casual speech. 2 other things, rumors and gossip. These are cancers. These are cancers. This is kind of like skin cancer. You got to deal with it. It's not going to kill you right away. Gossip is like pancreatic cancer. It's really aggressive. And if you don't deal with it really soon, it's going to eat things alive. And you can say all you want about, well, I don't care what people do when they're not at work, and I don't care who sleeps with who, but when it's coming in the workplace, people are people, and you need to address that. You need to stop it. You can't. Toleration is not. You know, sometimes people say, well, I put them through scenarios when I have longer time about what to do in this situation. And so, well, I would just respond with silence. Okay, that is a form of toleration. You've got to take an active stance against these things. And rumors are especially hard in the corporate world because there's sometimes things get out that the company's not ready. It might be a merger, it might be an acquisition, it might be a layoff. But as a leader, your credibility is on the line when somebody asks about these things. And you have to answer those questions. We don't have the detail to do that right now. Expectations, we talked about that a little bit earlier about setting expectations. Standards. As a project manager, you may have a due out to a client on Friday at noon. And as a project manager, you may decide, you know what, I need whatever submissions in 24 hours period. So if it's due to the client on Friday at noon, I want that stuff Thursday at noon. Because that gives me time to digest it, to tweak it, to double check the questions and make sure I'm fully familiar with it. Because that's who the client's going to be talking to, is me, the project manager. All right, so you may set standards like that, but people have to know them. Don't surprise them on standards. Let them know. Let them know. Performance feedback, it's more than criticism. It's got to be more than criticism. You got to catch people doing things right once in a while. What is reinforced is repeated. And if it's not reinforced, people are out there flailing around trying to figure out what's right and what's not. So performance feedback, again, there's a little booklet out there I have on Amazon if you want to read more about it. But I do 3 or 4 hour block on performance feedback where we sit through scenarios and practice doing it. Because a lot of people don't get training in how to do that, but it's hard. But compliments and thank yous are powerful tools in a leader's toolbox. Often overlooked. When you've got a part of your project team doing great work, hey, I really appreciate, you know, when you give me something, I don't have to go back and run it through spell check. You take the extra time to make sure the document's formatted correctly. And I never have to ask you about your facts because they're always right. Because I've checked them. First 5 times you gave me something, I checked your facts. And they're right every time. Now we have confidence, credibility, and trust between each other. A tense situation. This is something that I have adapted. And when you have an organization full of passionate people like Thrasher, people want to do well, people want to win, they want to succeed, they want to achieve excellence. Tensions get high. And every so often somebody's going to get a little red in the face. They're going to start screaming or yelling, maybe saying shucky darns or words to that effect. And when that happens, sometimes you'll be, as the project manager, you'll be the target of that anger. First thing you need to do, the first thing is you got to absorb it. Give them a chance to off gas. Love them. Sooner or later, they're going to have to stop and take a breath. And when they stop and take that breath, when they've expended all rounds and they got to reload, right? Interject an agreement. This is a powerful signal. You're sending that I'm not here to fight. I'm not here to fight. Yes. And the reality is, if nothing else, when Quinn stands in front of me and red in the face and yell at me, that's a bad situation. No matter what the issue is, the fact that he stands in front of me and yell at me is a bad situation, right? So you got to be careful what you agree with, because it can lead to the blame game and start pointing fingers, but find something that you can agree with. That's that first powerful signal, I'm not here to fight. Again, when I was a younger man, somebody yelled at me, I yelled back. I was combative. I was very, very aggressive. I'm much calmer now. But then, that second signal you send is, well, you're practicing habit number 5, right? You're wanting to understand. Let me understand what's going on. Now, don't ask the sarcastic question, right? Are you sure that's what they said? Nah, that's just poking the bear. Don't do that. But you ask the question, make sure you understand the issue. So many times, I've seen people get spun up over a misunderstanding, a misperception. That's all it was, a simple misunderstanding. But if you're not doing this, if you respond like, they're yelling at you, hey, what do you mean? It was not, I didn't say that. When you respond like it, then it escalates. Now when you seek to understand, now you can deal with the problem. So many times, this will be the end right here. Once you achieve clarity of what the issue is about, then you just add a little bit of context, and now it's over. And the person, oh yeah, that makes sense. Sorry man, sorry about all the screaming and cussing and questioning your ancestry. I didn't. But sometimes it's more involved than that, and that's where you go to the 5th day of action plan. How are we going to solve this? And sometimes what I've found is people get so excited, so angry, so frustrated, they stop thinking and they're just going on an attack. They're just boiling over. And so once I've signaled to them, hey, I'm not here to fight, and I've added whatever context I can, then I can walk them through a solution that they're going to solve the problem. Maybe it's me, but a lot of times it's, okay, it's what they need to do, and you can walk them through that, and all of a sudden everything is so much better. And what you've done, again, is earned their trust and their respect because you didn't blow up back at them. And when you do that, then they kind of owe you. They feel indebted to you because they knew you would have been reasonable to scream at them, scream back. When you don't do that, you built your own credibility. So I have about like 4 or 5 more slides, so stay with me though. But project management requires, you got to be a great listener. You got to work at listening. You got to understand what your team is telling you, what's going on. You got to apply these tools that we've talked about, ethos, pathos, and logos. Remember we talked about PMP, that project manager professional certification? That's part of your ethos. How many times do you get emails? Someone's a CE, right? What's a CE? Or P? Professional engineer, right? Why did they put that on there? Does it really help you? Does it change the way you talk to them? Maybe. They're bragging a little bit, right? Hey, I passed the exam. I'm certified, whatever. But they're establishing that baseline of credibility. That's why people love putting those initials. You know, this is Mark McMillion, BSc, MBA, ABA, whatever, NFL, whatever, you know. All those initials are about communicating a baseline of credibility. And you're not dealing with some guy who just fell off the turnpike. I know what I'm doing here. That's why people get to PMP. Not to mention that the technical knowledge it imparts is helpful in achieving your goals as well. Brief facts, the megaphone effect, and the 5 A's. The 5 A's. Any questions? I know I went really fast because it's a lunch and I'm probably over time and Susan will shoot me later. But any questions? Any questions about anything we talked about? I'll have my contact information up here in 1 second, and so don't hesitate to reach out to me. But you got to do both. You just don't have the luxury of being a manager or a leader. You got to do both, and you got to work at it. And it starts with communication. And the reality is, if you leave it in this room, you leave it in your little flip book, you wasted your time. So that's why I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to challenge you. It's on you now. So what I want you right now to identify 2 things that you're going to take from what we've talked about today and how you're going to apply them. I want you to write them down. It may be, you know what, I want to work on my ethos. You know what, I'm going to set some standards in my project team and clearly communicate those. It may be, I'm going to start employing brief backs when I ask people to do things. And I don't mean it in an insulting way. Some people may be insulted. But it's amazing what happens when you're consistent. They get past that. And they start accepting it as a norm. Tell me 2 things. You're not telling me. It's not me. You're not accountable to me. Tell yourself 2 things that you will put to work from what we've done today. If you leave it in here, we've wasted time. We've wasted your time. We've wasted my time. We've wasted Thrasher's time. I was in the Army 22 years. I have hurried up and waited a lot of hours. I do not like having my time wasted, and I really hate wasting other people's times. You know, you have a formation, and the colonel says, "Hey, I want everybody here at 0700," and then the captain say, "Okay, I want everybody here at 0630," and then the first sergeant say, "Okay, I want everybody here at 0600," and then the platoon sergeant say, "Okay, I want everybody here at 05." You know, it ended up. You're wherever you need to be 2 hours early standing around because everybody backs it off and your time is just shot. That could have been time you could have slept, you could have been with your family, you could have been doing something else. I hate wasting time. My time, I want to spend it the way I want to spend it. I want to spend it with you today. I chose to do that. So 2 things. The second thing is, whether you're a project manager now or you're going to be, that's why you're here, right? The answer is this. I think I've lost you. Is it too warm in here? Am I too boring? I'm too low-key? I need to amp it up a little bit? Too relaxed? Too chilled? How are you going to incorporate that in your project teams? They may be the same thing, but there were things that we talk about in terms of leadership. Maybe is it when you're a project manager, maybe you're going to have an after hours with your project team to pull them together. You know, hey, let's just go have a beer at Meagher's. Or maybe it's, hey, you know what? Let's have lunch today. Pizza's on me. You can go get $5 Little Caesars. It's amazing the goodwill buying food or a drink for somebody engenders. It's a great way to bond. Or maybe it's you get little things made. Hey, we are Project Team Alpha. All those other teams are the Omega. We're the Alpha, baby. And you make that part of your team identity. There's things that you can do as a leader to build that team. And that's what I want you to take out of here. I want you to apply some of this stuff. I want you to use this stuff. I spent 27 years now. Well, 31 years ago, I started learning stuff as a cadet at 4 years of West Point. I spent a lot of time learning these lessons. I learned them the hard way by getting things wrong, and I got a lot of things right along the way. My dad used to tell me a smart man learns from his mistakes. A smarter man learns from someone else's mistakes. So go make your own mistakes. Don't make the mistakes I made. This is me. There's my website, my email address, Twitter, phone, text me. I don't mind asking questions. I'm a resource. If you have a question, I don't charge by the question. You want to call me or ask me or email me something? I'm okay with that. I like that. Because it means that I've made a difference and someone cares what I think. I find it very flattering. So don't hesitate to reach out to me if you're so inclined. Thank you. You've been a great audience. I apologize for the breakneck pace we went through, but we had a lot of stuff.